Hello, my name is Kristen Daly, and this is my final presentation on reader response journals. The first important question to ask is what reading means. Reading is a process of comprehending, of constructing meaning. Rather than absorbing meaning from the text, the reader, using his or her own experiences, creates meaning. In doing so, transactions occur between the reader's mind and the language of the written text. My goal is to not only read with students, but also to have them apply their own life experiences to what we are reading and construct meaning from that. In this fashion, they're able to make connections between the reading and themselves. They can internalize it, process it, and make it their own. This bridges to reader's response theory. According to Cole, reader response theory focuses on the process of reading a text. Unlike new criticism theorists who assert the meaning of a text resides in the words and structures of the text alone, reader response theorists argue that the meaning of the text is created by the reader. I believe that what the individual reader brings to the table is very important. Two readers can, with the same piece of literature, find very different things. Our life experiences influence this and inspire our interpretation. Theodore Rothke's poem, My Papa's Waltz, is a great example for this. Some people see a dance between father and child, as implied by the title. Others, a violent incident of abuse. According to reader response theory, both interpretations are valid. How can we find ways to guide students to connect with the materials they're reading in class? As a literature teacher, my goal is to have students connect with what they're reading. They should be asking questions, making predictions, and reacting to what they are reading in their literary analysis of a text. I want my students to feel comfortable enough to challenge themselves and others while trying to construct meaning. I want them to connect. If a student is not connected, he or she is not invested. Students need to be shown the ways in which they have an active role in their own reading in order to stay connected. Knowing that they can use their own thoughts and ideas can ignite interest in students. Otherwise, we run the risk of this sleepy child here in our own classroom. Hey, come on, get back in. Students need to know that it's okay to disagree with or dislike the things that they read. They need to be encouraged to ask questions, to challenge, to make connections, to wonder, to disagree. It shows them that they have a voice and that it means something. My rule is that all opinions, if properly defended and argued, are valid. It gives students ownership of the work that we are doing. I disagree with you. Good. Why? Reading journals are a good way to invite student voice. Journaling is a powerful venue for personal meaning making and reflection, and provides students with an opportunity to practice reading and writing skills. Summarizing, inferences, predictions, questioning, clarifying, evaluating, generalizing. The success of journaling depends on good teacher guidance in developing, nurturing, and monitoring good journaling skills. When this is new for students, they need guidance and oversight in order to make the most of the journal experience. Otherwise, as it suggests in the Cole text, you run the risk of students submitting summary-heavy entries with little cognitive efforts. With readers' response journals, we can empower students by showing them that we value their ideas. We're asking students to take an active investment in what they're reading. We're asking them to consider why they react the way that they do. Often, we learn a bit about ourselves and our classmates in the process. With the journaling process, I've seen advances in student comprehension of a text while building writing skills. They discuss more frequently without my having to prompt them. It is an individual activity that promotes collaboration. One thing that I'm revisiting this year is how to do this. Many students do not feel comfortable with expressing their own ideas in class because they've not been guided in how to challenge convention. What if I don't know how to think? Perhaps this comes back to us, and we need to take a step back and take a closer look at the ways in which we're teaching students to read for understanding. We need to slow down and return to the basics. Students need help to challenge texts and formulate their own opinions. I disagree because. How do I take my ideas from because? Because it is. Because I think so. And make them concrete and articulate. I want students to extend beyond something as sad or funny or infuriating and develop the capacity to truly explore why. Why is it sad? Why is it infuriating? Regardless of reading ability, all teens need instruction that moves them to deeper understanding of texts and increases their ability to generate questions and ideas. It's not a matter of reading with proficiency. It is learning tools to actively read, engage, and understand what we are reading. Myers has given us great guidelines to guide students how to ask questions in class. What character was your favorite? Why? Are you like any character in this work? Explain. Overall, what kind of feeling did you have after reading a few paragraphs of this work, midway, after finishing this work? Are there any parts of this work that were confusing to you? If so, which parts? Why do you think you got confused? Do you think the title of this work is appropriate? Is it significant? Explain. What do you think the title means? What kind of a person do you feel the author is? What makes you feel this way? Do you share any of the feelings of the characters in this work? Explain. What do you feel is the most important word, phrase, passage, or paragraph in this work? Explain why it is important. Students also need to understand why it is important to write. Returning to the idea of a reading to writing connection, teachers can best help students grow as writers by providing them with experiences in which they not only make meaning of their reading, but also make meaning in their own lives. Writing can serve as the perfect tool for this task, provided the process includes inquiry, discovery, and meaning-making. The best books for facilitating this process will be those that provide young readers and writers with the material to make meaning in their own lives as they relate to their reading. Students need to be able to engage with the text in order to connect to it. Often, this begins with personal experience. This is part of the reason why we need to strongly consider the texts that we are teaching and why we teach them. What text did I use with my students to connect their reading with their writing? My 8th grade students just completed Night by Elie Wiesel. If you've not read it, it's a story of a young man who survives the Holocaust. It is, in my opinion, one of the most important texts ever written, and I believe that everyone should read it at least once in their lifetime. I wanted to use this text to have my students make connections between their reading and their writing. Cole suggests that historical fiction is important for the purpose of building humanity in students. While Night is not fiction, I can think of few texts better than Night for the purpose of building a sense of humanity. It's not in our book, but I feel strongly that it could be. Is it young adult? The protagonist is a teenager, yes. The story is told from a viewpoint and in the voice of a young adult, yes. While it's not written by and for young adults, it is a text that is often taught in middle schools, and for good reason. For the entirety of the text and as a culminating project, we worked on readers' response journals. The students needed to create 9 well-written journal entries, 1 for each chapter. They needed to choose at least 1 quote from each chapter, and they needed to do 1 piece of artwork to supplement each of their journal entries. They needed a well-drafted cover and a creative title. My goals for this unit were that students would be able to make connections with the text and focus on their own reactions and responses. They used a variety of reading and writing strategies to analyze a nonfiction text. They used information provided to deepen their understanding of life in concentration camps during World War II. They developed and considered their interpretations of Night. They were able to demonstrate comprehension and their understanding of Night. And they were able to recognize the strength of their own ideas and reactions to a text. The essential concepts were the inherent violence of war, World War II, the Holocaust, involuntary physiological reactions to stress, desensitization to violence and death, humanity in the absence of humanity, kindness and cruelty, and crisis of faith. My general procedures, the main focus for students was on their responses to the materials and the ideas presented. Night is Elie Wiesel's story, a young adult who lived through the atrocities of the Holocaust. As the students read, they will consider the ways they would feel if presented with the same challenges. They would be encouraged to ask questions and to make predictions. They were asked to place themselves in Ellie's position and to consider how they would face the same conflicts. They selected excerpts from the text and responded in writing to the words that they had chosen. Throughout this unit, students were guided to peer edit and to revisit and revise their work. They used the Myers questions and they made notes in the text as they read. They were asked to create thoughtful responses to their reading and to react in writing to the story presented in Night. They were encouraged to use rhetorical questions to challenge the text, to make comments about the author, the events, and the experiences presented in the text. This aligns with many different standards from the core content, both in reading and writing. A lot of times I heard, "What do you want from me?" Since my 8th graders were brand new to this process, there were many moments of frustration along the way. At first, many of them were relying on summary. Can't we just summarize? What if I don't think anything? They were confused to learn that this was not what the assignment was asking for. They'd never been asked to write what they thought before. Guided practice led to improvement. Some students began with simple, summary-heavy responses like this one by my student Paola. In Night, Chapter 1 is Elie introducing himself to the readers. He was a Jewish and very religious 12-year-old boy. He's so religious that he already wanted to start learning Kabbalah, but his father didn't let him because he was too young. He didn't pay attention to his father, so a guy named Moshe the Beetle that knows everything about Kabbalah decided to teach Elie. But one day, Moshe the Beetle disappears, but everyone seems to forget about him. In order to maintain the integrity of the student submission, I've not proofread or corrected their grammatical mistakes.